Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am Christine Marks. I'm a painter and today I am painting my barn. I have been kind of struggling over what I want to paint today, and it is a beautiful day outside. The sky is very blue and there are some beautiful purple flowers that are down near the road near my barn, and I just wanted to capture it. So I'm not outside. I did take a reference photo, and I'm going to start with my flat brush. Very basic palette of colors. This is a blue-green, all Daniel Smith. This is the palette that I'm working from now. And I have found that using a flat head brush for roof lines and windows is just so much easier than trying to use a round brush. For most things, like now I'm struggling with the little, what do they call them? The things that go on top of my barn. And I probably should have used a smaller brush, but I don't like switching around a lot with my brushes. And so I'm going to block in all of my barn with flathead, this flat big brush. And so now I'm putting in the stone that is at the bottom of the barn, and I'm starting with a light brown and just trying to get, I did not start this with a pencil sketch. I just started it with my focal point in the middle. And if you notice, I did try to make it a little bit to the left of center and a little bit below center, although it looks like it's worked its way up a little bit, using the rule of thirds. Cut the piece of paper in thirds, top to bottom, 1/3, 2/3, and then also bottom to top and right to left. And you never want your focal point dead center in the middle. So my barn is to the left of center, and a little bit higher than center. So I'm adding, there are multiple roof lines. I'm just going to use my flat brush and kind of suggest them in. And my milk house is there in the front. Love the milk house. It is the farm that we bought here. We've been here back east from California for 15 years. And we finally, 5 years ago, moved to an old stone farmhouse. And so this parts of this barn predate, I think they're 1750. There are parts of the barn that have burned down, but there are parts of the barn that have been around since before the Revolutionary War. So it is a really beautiful building out there. And so I'm painting the stone bottom in the milk house. This used to be a dairy farm, and they sold milk out of the window there in my little, what is now a gardening shed. And so I started with my focal point, and rather than going into the wildflowers that I wanted to put in the front, I figured I would start with the sky in the background. And it's just a cerulean blue. I wet the entire paper and switched to a round brush rather than a flat brush. Although this painting probably could have been done completely with a flat brush, I switched to what is surprisingly one of my favorite brushes, which is an Etcher Labs brush. Round brush that I use. It's not very floppy. It's not super soft, but it's not super stiff. Seems to be the perfect consistency for the type of painting I like to do. So I am just wet the whole thing, and then I'm putting in the darker blue to the top like you do with skies. And what I had learned years ago, which I thought was amazing, is when you paint something like this, you paint it like you're looking in a bowl, and the horizon is further back in the bowl, and it comes towards you like a bowl, so that the clouds on top are very big and the clouds on the bottom are smaller and less defined. And that has always helped me when I'm painting. I don't know. Maybe that'll help you. Think of your your painting as a bowl, and the farm is in the back of it. So the clouds on the bottom are smaller and more diffuse, and not as big and defined as the ones on top. So I really just go back and forth a lot with the sky. I actually ended up maintaining one color until I added a little purple here for the bottoms. I wanted to put in some definition of the clouds here are beautiful today. We're going through a heat wave like the rest of the country, but the bottoms have this tint of purple to them. So I didn't add anything else other than cerulean blue Daniel Smith to the sky, and just kept adding, dropping in darker pigment as it's pretty quickly. This whole painting took me like a half an hour. And so put in the first layer and then keep dropping in more pigment to the top of the sky, which if you look at a picture or look at the sky, it is darker at the top and lighter at the bottom. And so now I'm laying in a little bit of purple to kind of give a little more light definition to the clouds. Just a plain, I think it's a regular Daniel Smith violet. I can look it up and see if I can find the color. I will reference the colors that I'm using in below when you click on the video. So I haven't done that yet, but I will do that. And so adding a little more purple to the bottom of the clouds, but not wanting it to be too prominent. It's still, the paper is still very wet. I'm working pretty quickly. I have sped this up, but I'm actually working pretty quickly on this video because I have about 45 minutes to finish it. And now I'm adding, my barn actually has a pasture in front of it that has, the grass is mown down. We don't grow anything in it, but there are the purple flowers that I put at the beginning. The front of this painting are flowers that are outside of that fence along the ditch. And I just love them. I've never seen them, didn't see them in California. I see them here in Pennsylvania all along the ditches. So I thought it would be a nice complement to the cool blues and greens that I'm using in here. So I'm adding the greenery that is behind my barn, which is mostly, some of it's imagined, like the dark green that's right next to my barn, but the rest of it is pretty true to form. My neighbor planted a bunch of pine trees along that whole border of the fence, and so I'm putting in the pine trees and just the beautiful loose green trees behind it. I don't know if they're ash. I'm not quite sure what they are, but it's a beautiful tree line to the left of my barn over to my neighbor's house. And so I'm adding that in. That behind my barn is the oak tree that is behind my barn, and then just putting in the pine trees that are to the front. So it's just really a matter too of adding some beautiful dark greens, medium greens, and light greens. And as you can see, the light diffused ones are in the back, giving it distance. And then you want to, as you're moving forward, give a little bit more definition to your trees. And it's, your trees are going to look different than my trees. I'm just giving you overall tips from painting for 15 years. And you want yours to look different. You want to put your own signature on this when you're painting. So now to the right, where what would be my garage and Shannon's house back there, I got rid of that and I am putting in trees. I did not want to put another structure to the right of my barn. I just wanted to use my barn as my inspiration, and I left the other two buildings out and am putting in trees. And they kind of mimic the tree line that is to the right of that. So as you can see, you do the very light trees in the distance. And as you come forward, you want more pigment in your brush and less water so that the perspective is right. So that it appears that those trees are closer to you. And now I'm adding some dark green, some shadowy areas underneath the trees on the left, and putting in the field. Now the field, like I said, is mown down, and I wanted to put these beautiful periwinkle flowers that are everywhere here in Pennsylvania. So I am just putting in a big wash of water and then going in with a warm green, and you just let your brush dance around. I find that when I'm not copying a photo, this is like from, not even from memory, it's from imagination, that I end up with some things that I'm really happy with. So I feel like if you're watching this video and you're following the tutorial, because wow, those clouds do look really, I'm very happy with the clouds. I'm looking as, wow, the clouds are beautiful. Take what you like from videos that you watch and discard what you don't like. I have always said in all the, I watch a lot of videos. I love YouTube, love the free content. I follow a ton of artists myself, follow a ton of people, RV people. But if you can learn one thing a day painting, then that, to me, if I can learn one thing a day painting, I feel like it's been a successful day, that I came away with something that I didn't know before, is a win for me. So if you learn one thing from this video that you didn't know, that's a success. And so now I'm going through and I'm just playing with this field of wildflowers. And I mean, basic art facts are, or perspective facts are, the flowers that are closer to you are bigger, and the flowers that are further away are smaller and less defined. And same with the greenery, same with everything. And so I am just kind of dancing around with my brush and putting in big periwinkle flowers in the front. And I had thought about going in and defining them more, but I'm really happy with this finished painting. I'm really happy with the blue of the sky, which I am not a fan of that blue by itself. It travels funny. It's a little splotchy, but every time I use it and then I sit back and wait, I'm really happy with the results. So sometimes with watercolor, you have to sit back and let those happy accidents happen and let that paint run where it's going to. I read something last week. It said, watercolors are delightful because they kind of paint themselves, and they do. And so watercolors, while very frustrating to me, are also very delightful in the interesting things that they do. So anyways, that's a little tangent. But so now I'm just going through, putting in, I could have added some yellows or some reds to the field, but I really was wanting to keep with a blue, green, purple palette. And so I did not go in. Sometimes with your paintings, you just, you're done and they're done. Other times you look at it and it needs something more and you keep working it. But this was just a delightful painting start to finish for me. So anywho, let's go back to what I'm doing. I'm dropping in some darker greens and just kind of taking a look around the whole field. It probably could be a little darker in some areas, but I'm liking, I don't know, I'm liking the overall pattern that I ended up with. So I'm just coming in and semi-dry brushing after doing wet on wet to start. It's sometimes nice to dry brush in with the side of your brush. I take this brush and turn it on the side and just bring it up in strokes to add little swaths of green. And I am very happy with what it's doing on my paper. So I'm just kind of jumping around. You don't want it all in one area. And I'm jumping around with my dry brush of the same green that is in the field, but more concentrated pigment. And then going over the left side, I don't want it to be overly defined. I want it to be more defined than the back with some kind of a pleasing pattern, but not too perfect. So now I'm going in with a very small brush and adding the windows to my barn. And you are wondering, they're not perfect on the bottom. And guess what? They're not perfect on my barn. Whoever built this in the 1770s or 60s or whenever it was, they are not perfectly spaced apart on the bottom. And I don't know why, but I did paint it true to form. The two on the right are closer together than the three on the left. And now I'm taking the very tiny flathead brush and putting in some mixtures of brown and then brown and blue mixed together and brown and Payne's gray, which I find mimics the Pennsylvania fieldstone and the stones that are in my barn. What I'm told when you have an old farmhouse like this is there's usually an area where they stack stones, and my house looks the same as this. It's all different colored stones that they pull out of the ground, and usually there's a working stack around the yard that you use in repairing your walls and building new homes. I guess the house behind where our house is here that was built in 1788 burned down, and then they built this house. So this one is from 1788, the house, not the barn. The barn is older. So George Washington was milling around, a couple decades earlier or a decade earlier. And who knows? I can't say he positively slept here, but it's possible because there are signs all over Bucks County where George Washington slept here or here. So now I'm doing the milk house where they used to sell milk from the dairy out the front window. And I'm very fortunate in that across the street there is a dairy farm and I can go buy fresh milk and fresh beef, and it's a wonderful operating dairy farm. So this is our old dairy farm window, and it's a cute little building that holds all my gardening stuff. And I am put in the front of the roof, and I'm putting some more specific. I have some roses in front of it and a cottage garden that goes around it. So I'm kind of plopping that in there and giving it a little definition. I'm trying to define the middle of my painting. It's not the closest to you, but it is the area of interest. The focal point is the barn. So I'm trying to continue on with some areas of interest in front of the milk house. And now I'm just dropping in some of these shadow areas or the darker areas of the barn. And I'm going to peel off the paint, but I'm never done when I peel off the tape, but I'm never done when I peel off the tape. Now I'm going to go back in because the right side looks a little pale compared to the left side. And I'm going to try to scrub out a little area that snuck under the tape, which happens. I'm not super worried about it. I am not a perfectionist. And then I'm going to go in and kind of define the right side of the barn and make up some trees with some trunks, and that just kind of, it's, the values are a little off. I'd like to bring some darker values to the right side. So I'm plunking in some shadow areas on the left, and I don't like the transition between the front of the barn and the meadow. So I'm just gonna drag out some fieldy areas, which is how it looks. We have a field that goes in that direction there, and I'm trying to make it have a little bit more natural transition. And then after scrubbing out some of that on the right and then filling in just a darker color there, it had some anemic little line there. You kind of want to sit back from your painting and look like what is not working. Maybe even go get a cup of coffee and then come back up and look at it, because your eyes look differently at it when you're not staring at it. Add in a little bit more dark green next to my barn, and still not good. Still gonna go over to the right with some tree forms, which are actually more to the right on our property, but I am moving them next to the barn to fill in the area where the garage would be. And I don't know, it just makes it a more pleasing painting. That's the fun thing about painting, is that you can do what you want. I'm adding little vague tree trunks and putting in a little more green to kind of really balance that out. Now, doesn't that look better with a little bit of a darker value to the right as well as to the left? It gives a nice middle of the painting area. And that is not from a reference photo. It's just kind of what the painting needs. So I hope you enjoyed this. And if you did, please give me a thumbs up and a like and follow me. I'm going to add a little darker piece to the right, and I am wrapping it up. I ended up being really happy with this, so I am glad you joined me. If you have done this, please join us on Facebook, Creating with Christine Marks, and share what you've done, because I love to see people that are doing the tutorials and producing work. I love to see what they do. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.